Oh no!
Good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're so excited to be here with all of you tonight to celebrate Chaos Theory, Nic Stone's hot new book. Nic is here in conversation with Angie Thomas, and we're really to be co-hosting this event with BEAM. BEAM stands for Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. They are a national training, movement building, and grant-making institution that is dedicated to the healing, wellness, and liberation of Black and marginalized communities. Their mission is to remove the barriers that Black people experience getting access to or staying connected with emotional health care and healing through education, training, advocacy, and the creative arts. And we would be remiss if we didn't say that Yolo Akili is a longtime Charis friend and a longtime person who brought BEAM to Charis before anyone else. So I just want to speak Yolo into the room because we love Yolo. And so first, I'm now going to bring up Windward Academy, who is a listener and a health communicator whose main goal is to make health information accessible and relevant to different audiences, particularly communities of color. She believes that meaningful communications honor the lived experiences of those you are communicating with. Her work has included managing the communications for a large NIH-funded study focused on queer men of color, and garnering media interest for health and science research at Tufts University School of Medicine. She's an avid reader and primarily reads books authored by women of color. One of her favorite authors is Octavia Epa. So welcome.
Yes, I am! Got a sponsor on up here. You know we gotta be best friends. We're gonna do this gracefully. Okay. We're on? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to see all your faces. My name is Windward Academy. I am the Director of Communications at BEAM, the Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective. ER did a great introduction of who we are. We are all about Black mental health and healing and wellness and liberation, and we know that those things are so interconnected. We are so honored to be here for this evening, to uplift Nic Stone's newest book, Chaos Theory. At BEAM, we believe that you can build up your toolbox for wellness. So you have tools like coloring and music, and books are tools too. Books can help us heal, they can help us process, they can help us connect, and they can move us more towards liberation. Stories like Chaos Theory and other narratives that center Black mental health and liberation and wellness are critical for helping us build a world where there are no barriers to Black healing. We are so excited at BEAM to expand our work into the Atlanta area. We're going to be having some training, some healing circles, some events that you all can take advantage of. We're excited. There's information in the back there. Please take some goodies, take some resources, and we know that this is all contributing to our everyday wellness as we cultivate that with each other. So for tonight, it is my dear, dear pleasure to introduce two extraordinary Black women into this space. So let's uplift them, Nic Stone and Angie Thomas. So Nic Stone is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Dear Martin. Yes. Dear Martin is a novel that launched her career in 2017 and encourages readers of all ages to examine their biases in their own lives and to have honest discussions about race in today's world. Nic's mission is to create books and stories that speak to kids that are unrepresented in young adult literature today. Her aim is not only to create windows, but also mirrors for young people to introduce their new perspectives, and mirrors for children to see their experiences and their identities fully represented. Born and raised in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, Nic grew up with a wide range of cultures, religions, and backgrounds, and constantly strives to bring diverse voices and stories to her work. All of her novels have been widely embraced by teens and adults and have been the recipients of numerous accolades, awards, and starred reviews. In addition to Dear Martin, her books include Dear Justice, Blackout, Whiteout, and a middle grade novel called Clean Getaway, all New York Times bestsellers. Her latest young adult novel, Chaos Theory, was published on February 28, 2023. She is a Spelman College graduate, and Nic lives in Atlanta with her family. You can find more information about her at nicstone.info. And Angie Thomas is the author of the award-winning #1 New York Times bestselling novels, plural, The Hate You Give, On the Come Up, and Concrete Road, as well as Find Your Voice, a guided journal for writing your truth, and the soon-to-be published Nick Blake and the Remarkable.
That's about me.
Angie was a former teen rapper who holds a BFA in creative writing, and she was born in Mississippi but now resides in Atlanta. You can find her online at angiethomas.com. Please give a warm welcome to Nic.
If you can actually see me. Hold on. Kobe, come on. You've done this before. Act like you've been here before, because you have. All right. You gonna sit? Thank you. We're gonna
Kobe
start.
is not a black woman, but he loves black women.
Oh, well, he really does. I will not get into some of the things that we witnessed.
No, he came straight to Auntie. Like, we rushed in here and was in my face.
Hey, Kobe, where's Auntie Nick? Right there. Okay, you're okay. How about you sit down here? You sit down with your treats. There you go. So he's technically my therapy dog, but we're working on stuff. Get a little help. There you go. All right. How are you, friend? Oh my gosh, that's quite the answer.
Look, like, we're here to talk about mental health. I'm not well, and that's okay. Like, I'm exhausted, friends. I look amazing. And that is because aesthetics, like I look amazing, I smell amazing. This is one of my ministries, right? Like looking good when you don't feel good is one of my ministries. But we are talking mental health, so I'm just gonna keep it very, very real today.
That's a good thing. I think actually that's necessary.
Yeah.
And I think too, as Black women, we've been conditioned to not admit when we're weak and to pretend to be strong. And because we've been made to feel as if we have to be strong to maintain normalcy, we actually are made to feel at times as if we have to be strong to make everybody else around us strong.
Ooh.
And that is taxing. That is, it affects our health. It affects our physical health, mental health. So for you to admit that, but not only that, for you to write this book is a gift to all of us. So
Don't make me cry, friend.
No.
I just fixed my makeup. Okay, I said the same thing to Brianna.
It's okay. But no, because the funny thing is, I was reading the book about a week or two ago. I started reading it, and I text Nick in the middle of me just reading the letter to readers because you made an admission in there, and it was you made yourself very vulnerable just by doing that. And so I think my first question then would have to be, girl, why?
Look, this is the truth, y'all. I don't have the energy to be anybody but myself, period. And I don't have the energy to pretend to be something that I am not. And I also don't want to be anything that I'm not. I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago at the North Texas Teen Book Festival with a brilliant writer named Amber McBride. Listen, Amber flipped my whole joint, right? Because my niece and nephew here, I can't cuss. She flipped my whole thing because she said on this panel pretending like things don't exist
Yeah.
is what leads to people feeling like they're alone in their suffering. Because that one sentence was just like, oh. So for me, this is my purpose. Like, my purpose is to be as authentically myself as I can so that other people see like, oh, that's what it looks like to be a person, which means this thing about me that matches this thing about her, I'm a person too. So for me, it's all about just finding these points of connection and destigmatizing mental illness, y'all, because why is there a stigma around this? Like, oh, you got osteoporosis and I have major depressive disorder. Cool, we good, right? I think that like starting to talk about some of these things as if they are just normal parts of our lives, because they are, is very important.
Oh, yeah, no. And one thing, can y'all hear me well?
Yes.
I'm sorry, because apparently my dog needs some mental help right now.
Oh, yeah, I feel
Kobe,
it,
look,
right?
you're supposed to be a therapy dog. Why am I giving you therapy? He's like, I'm getting there, mom. But I think too, one thing that I love about this upcoming generation, or as I say current, because young people now have so much power and influence, much more than I think our generation had at their age. You know, I'm actually glad we didn't have it because, but because we weren't as aware as they are. But one thing about them is they're being more open and honest about mental health. They're talking about things. They're not shying away from it. They're trying to remove the stigma. So I guess then what is it that when you decided, well, first, when did you decide to tell this story? And what was it particularly for this generation? Because I know most of us in here, I'm looking in the room, we're not necessarily the YA range. A lot of people in here, even though we love
That's
YA.
just on marketing.
It's just smart, but let's be real, YA is for everybody, but it's aimed at young people. So what was your hope for them when you got this idea?
So the fascinating thing about chaos theory is I wrote chaos theory before I wrote Dear Martin. Chaos theory I wrote in 2014. It's the second book I ever wrote. And it's the book that we went, like when I tell the story of Dear Martin, I'll be like, yeah, we sent this one book out on submission and the editor liked the voice and the dialogue, but she wasn't quite sold on the story. And so they asked me for a proposal and Dear Martin came out of that proposal. This is the book that we sent out. So I submitted chaos theory so I wrote it in the fall of 2014, shortly after graduating from undergrad at Spelman College. I'm not that young, by the way. I took a break, like a 7-year break. Just on
Can we
Because I
take
see y'all doing
all the
the math.
ageism though away?
No, it's not ageism. It's not ageism. Because I think it's important that people recognize that a grown behind woman is being open about her struggles.
Yeah.
So I want y'all to know that I'm almost 38 years old and that it's important for me as an adult to set an example for the young people.
But you're not old.
I didn't say I was old now. Look, we're not even halfway there yet, okay? Very young.
My mom's aunt used to say, you're not old until you're dead, buried, and nobody remembers your funeral. That's it. That's my mom in the back. That was my mom in the back. By the way. That's it. So you know they're married.
But yeah, so I started back then. I was switching from this like wildly tropey, overwritten fantasy novel that you can find on Wattpad called Little Spark. I was switching from that over to something contemporary. And, you know, mental health is something, I studied psychology because of my own experiences as a teenager with mental health struggles and no support, right? But like, yeah, my family is wild. My paternal grandmother was diagnosed manic depressive, which is the old term for bipolar depression, in the 1970s. Like, and homegirl was a trip. My brother is in the room. He could tell you, Granny B was a trip. Like, she had times where she was like, I'm gonna write you a check for your tuition. And then she had times when she would shred me with her words, right? And she was just kind of, she she had some stuff going on, right? And I think that because of my experiences with her, my experiences with my father's anxiety, my experiences with my own anxiety, when I was like 14 or 15, it was 14 and 15, I had this condition called dermatographia, where my anxiety would manifest as welts on my skin. So it's like a form of hives, but they didn't itch. But like if I touched my skin, it would swell, right? And it was a function of anxiety. So knowing that I had all of this stuff going on, I was just really curious about where does this stuff come from? So I studied psychology, I graduated, and when I switched from writing fantasy to contemporary, I really wanted to focus on a story about a girl living with some kind of psychiatric disorder, because I really wanted to dig deep into like what that experience is. So we tried to publish it, we tried to sell it to a publisher at the top of 2015, and nobody wanted to buy it. And I'm glad, because it wasn't ready at that point. Like, it was not a book. If it had published back then in that form, it wouldn't have the potential impact that it has now. Because since then, the reason it came back around, so Black Friday 2020, I'm in Hawaii with my family, right? And I woke up on Black Friday really bothered by the fact that I'd woken up. And I know part of what triggered that deeply depressive episode was I'd had too much to drink the previous night. So I was already on the verge, right? And now alcohol is a depressant. If you are a person with any sort of depressive disorder, be careful. Because it just pushed me right over the edge. And crawling back out of that, man, between my two therapists, psychiatrists, I had to try different medications to land on one that didn't make me a zombie. I was self-harming, I wasn't eating, like it was a very intense depressive episode. And so I had a combination of deep depression and intense anxiety, right? Which is a real mind swirl, is what we'll say, not the other word I want to use. In that experience, like having that experience, I knew like, okay, no, I have 3 books under contract. I literally told my publisher, I'm not writing any of these until we publish this one. And they said, okay, are you going to edit? And I was like, of course I'm going to edit. So I did, and it's interesting because I had the same experience with Dear Martin. So where Dear Martin, the first draft of Dear Martin, Marcus, have you read the first draft of Dear Martin? I feel like you might have read the first one.
I did.
Yeah. So the first draft of Dear Martin is 79,000 words, so it's double the length of the final version.
Wait a minute, hold, stop, pause.
Facts.
Nick Stone wrote a book over
I sure
70,000 words.
So was this one. This one was 80.
I read
So-
this one too.
Yeah, you read this old one too. Right, that's my brother. I love him. He's the best. So Dear Martin was 79,000 words. It had 8 points of view. It like bounced around in time, and Justice died on page like 3 or 4 in the original version of Dear Martin. I turned that joint in. My publisher was like, girl, bye. What we're not gonna do is off the main character in the first chapter. Let's run that back, right? We shouldn't say it like that because she's this adorable.
I think the fact that you even
American.
tried that though.
Look, I was being audacious, okay? I'm gonna pull it off
I should say,
eventually.
I shouldn't be
You're not
surprised.
surprised.
Leave it to Nick Stone to kill the main
Look,
character.
Phoebe was like, no man, that's not what we're doing. So I wound up cutting Dear Martin in half, knocking it down to one perspective, and just, it became the book that it is. So this book was 80,000 words. It is now the exact same length as Dear Martin. It's 49,000 words, just like Dear Martin was. And I just cut a lot of unnecessary stuff, right? And I think that was necessary. It was necessary for me to cut the unnecessary stuff for the book to be what it needed to be in order to actually be published at the time it needed to be published. Ooh.
You know what? I like that. No,
I just gave myself a
no,
chill.
but I'm a firm believer in timing being perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a believer, I believe that God's timing is perfect,
Yeah.
and He allows things and to happen when they're supposed to happen. And I think this was the perfect time for that book.
I think
Now,
so too.
here's something that always irks me at book events. Is that people will do these in conversations and stuff, and they're talking about the themes and the stuff in the book, but they never talk about what is the book about, the plot, the characters, because you know, we sometimes make this assumption that, oh, everybody's gonna read it, but some people are coming in here, they don't know what the book is about, they're just walking in. So could you tell our audience what Chaos Theory is about, who it's about?
So y'all see this beautiful cover, right?
I mean, okay, can we talk about the fact that that's you? Right, that is totally you.
Literally.
I think this isn't the first time they put you on the cover either.
It's not. I sent them my senior prom picture, and this is me in my prom date. His name is Josh Paul. But when I tell y'all whose name is Josh Paul, it's a connection. You're making the
Okay,
connection.
I'll explain later. Go ahead.
When I tell y'all I had to fight for these glasses, they didn't want to put glasses on the cover. They didn't. So, and that's the thing, right? And I bring that up because so many things about this cover represent a lot of things about the book, right? Like there's this, so this is Shelbi. Shelbi is a Black girl. She's 17 and she is living with, and most of the time thriving with a diagnosis of bipolar depression. And fully aware of it, on medication, has a therapist, living the best life that she can. And it's a good life. The boy on the cover, his name is Walter Andrew Criddle. He got some issues that he is not quite ready to
I
deal with.
mean, I have to say the way that they enter each other's lives
Is wild.
Is wild.
Like even it's the first, and that's not a spoiler, it's the first 5 pages. So like the story basically opens with Shelbi, who is a new student, her senior year, she's a new student at this school, receiving a wrong number text message that the spelling and grammar is just all jacked up, right? And so they end up having this conversation. She finds out that the person texting her is drunk. She finds out that he was trying to text his ex-girlfriend, and he basically like unloads on her, and she becomes this like anonymous emotional support person. On her way home, she passes a car accident, and she makes the person texting her promise that they won't drive home. On the way home, she passes a car accident. Eventually, 2 and 2 get put together, and she realizes the person that's texting her is who was the salutatorian at her school. And over the course of the story, what you basically are seeing are 2 young people doing their best. She is very stringent, I should say, about who she lets into her life and in what capacity. She is deathly afraid of romantic love. There are other people
I was gonna say
who are like that. And a lot of her story and her struggles match mine. And so it was important for me to show a person who knows what their deal is and who is doing what they need to do to make sure their life is as vibrant as it can be, and a person who isn't quite ready to admit they have a problem yet. And what happens when 2 people like that? What happens when their lives collide? It's a Nic Stone book, y'all. It's a romance, but y'all know, you know.
No, I feel like I say this for like every new book of yours, so I think this might be my favorite.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, but I even though you say, you know, Shelbi you have some things in common with her. As a writer, and I'm sure there are writers in the room. How many writers in the room? Okay, let me add this. Okay, now let me do this though. How many people want to be writers? Okay, now here's the thing though. If you write, you're a writer, you should have raised your hand the first time. That's just what I'm gonna say. If you're a writer, if you write, you're a writer. Like, don't let anybody take that from you. Tell people I'm a writer, period. Okay. Now, I'm sure the writers in the room want to know what kind of research, because you know, when we were talking about mental health, it's so okay, let's just say it. Everybody's experience is different.
Completely.
Everybody's looks different,
Yep,
but still there are things you most likely need to research.
absolutely.
So what kind of research went into this book?
Man, it was intensive. Multiple interviews with people living with bipolar depression, deep dives into scholarly journals, especially around obviously the topic of psychology and how mental health functions in the brain. So another fun fact about me, I was headed into graduate school was applying for graduate school for neuropsychology before I got an agent and was like, wait, you don't gotta go to school? Let's take this detour. But the way the brain functions has always been so fascinating to me. So I did a lot of that kind of research. And then y'all, after I write a book, it goes to a lot of people for vetting. A psychiatrist, it went to a therapist who specializes in Black and brown kids. It went to a person it went to actually a few people living with bipolar depression. And I'm very meticulous about this because while I am writing a lot of my own experience of neurodivergence, because that's what mental illness is, it's important to, like you said, recognize that not all experiences are the same. The one thing that I will say about this book that I'm very proud of is that it is very clear that Shelbi's experience is Shelbi's experience. There will be things that a person living with bipolar depression will be able to identify with, and there will be things in her experience that they won't be able to identify with. And the same thing with Andy. You know, there are things in his experience of substance abuse disorder that people with that particular form of neurodivergence, because substance abuse disorder is a form of neurodivergence. I'm going to say that one more time.
Please do.
Substance abuse disorder, aka addiction in all forms, is a form of neurodivergence. His experience is also very singular and particular to him, though there will be things that other people can identify with. Because I will say this to the writers in the room: universality is actually found in specificity.
Amen.
Trying to encompass all different types of experiences in one story is where you're going to fall apart.
Yes.
People can identify with a person who is living a very personal life and having personal experiences and manifestations of something that even other people are dealing with, but it manifests differently.
That's deep. Now, I will say though, this is one of the few books, I'm trying to think, is it the only book? No, one of the few books where Nic Stone actually writes from a girl's perspective.
Facts. Actually, at this point, I think there are more girl books than boy books.
Yes, more girl.
But it's only because Charis was a trilogy.
Yeah, that's the only
It's
reason.
literally the only reason.
Okay, let's just say for your YA books.
Yeah,
This is one of the only ones where you've written, what was it
it's
like?
both. It's a boy and a
Yeah,
girl.
both, it's both.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, y'all have to listen to the audiobook too. Because no, please do. Because Nick and Dion, what's Dion's name?
Dion Graham.
Dion Graham, he did my
He
book.
read
and I
Concrete
forgot.
Rose.
He read Concrete Rose. Love you,
My
Dion.
son, and you not.
I know this. I couldn't remember your last name. I just know it's Dion. But Dion Graham, they do a fantastic job with the audiobook. Nick does a great job as her audiobook narrator. Like, she's like triple, quadruple threat at this
When I
point.
tell y'all I cried while reading the book and they refused to edit it out. I was like, oh, that's what we're doing.
And you hear, and so like, just be prepared to cry. What was it like? I guess you've said so much of this character. What was it like writing a character that is more based on you than maybe previous characters?
Oh, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. The closest character to me, like, that isn't Shelbi is, so Jupiter is who I wish I was, but I'm not, but I wasn't. I didn't get to be her.
Right.
And then Rico in Jackpot, her experiences with regards to socioeconomics are interesting and parallel mine a little bit, but her personality is a little different. But Shelbi she's the most me character I've ever written. And it's scary, right? Like, and I think it's really only scary because it's impossible to know how other people perceive you. right? So like I'm writing a person that I know and love. Like I am genuinely my own number one fan. And I think, no, but you have to be, right? The person you will be with for the full duration of your life is you. If you don't love you, you're in trouble, right? So recognizing that like, oh my God, I love this character because I truly do. I have learned to love and accept and appreciate myself and my experiences and just the gift of being alive. At the same time, it's like she's just like kind of adorable and very vulnerable and just a little. She's like a donut. She's like a hot Krispy Kreme glazed donut. She's sweet and she's warm, but she also crushes easily. Y'all, this metaphor is on right now. This how you know your girl is a writer. So she's a hot Krispy Kreme donut, which means she's so sweet, but she's also really easy to devour. And she's aware of that. Like she's aware of how tender she is and how soft she is. So she's also aware of the fact that she doesn't do a good job building walls. So instead of building walls, she just stays away from people, right? I totally do that too, though none of you know it, because I've perfected seeming like I'm
That was loud.
anybody asked for it.
That was my mom. I know. Like, wow. Like,
But like I said, like my ministry is looking fantastic when I'm not doing well. And so with Shelbi, it was important for me to let her be herself on the page and let her be soft on the page and let me be soft in these darn events, right? Like I want everybody to leave this room feeling more human than when you came in. And that involves me being like, look at my open and bleeding heart, friends.
And you did that.
Thank you.
No, you did that. And I would add to that then, since this is you being vulnerable and this is your open and bleeding heart, what is it that you hope the readers, young, old, take away from this book? The conversations that it may create. We don't have any control over that, obviously, as authors. But what conversations do you hope this will create for young people, for not so young people, in creating this story?
My word for this season of life is rehumanization. And what's interesting is like the work that I've been doing seems wildly different, right? Like I published a nonfiction book with Dr. Ibram X. Kendi in January called How to Be a Young Anti-Racist, right? And like how you go from anti-racist to like this little girl falling in love and freaking out about it, right?
I mean, easily.
But that's the thing. You know it's easily, but a lot of people wouldn't make that connection.
Yeah.
That it's all of these like bigotries and things that people engage with are rooted in dehumanization. You cannot hate a person you see as a person. It's literally impossible. I was having a conversation last night with my beloved Nigel. Nigel is the wonderful and like there aren't enough good words that I can say about him, but he like put a couple babies in me, right? And has been there. And like we were having a conversation last night about some of the anti-trans legislation happening across the country. And we were talking about how the problem is that these legislators are not seeing trans people as people.
That's it.
It's like, oh, you're weird or you're different or there's something wrong with you. I think about the word that was tossed around frequently when I would hear about anything same-sex related when I was in church before people started seeing queer people as people. The word abomination is instant dehumanization. Instant. You are instantly telling a person that they're no longer a person. So with both of these books and like just in life right now, the goal for me is just to humanize myself as much as possible by feeling my feelings Y'all, I started the day, I was like, all right this morning. And then I've been through every emotion you can think of. I've had 3 breakdowns today, like sobbing. I'm exhausted, right? Like, I think I slept like 3, I'm still on California time. I think I went to bed at like 2. No. I tried to go to bed at 2 and I wound up falling asleep around 3. And then I had to get up this morning to wash my hair because, you know, we had this event, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I had to be fresh. Aesthetics. But yes, so I'm running on very little sleep. I went through like being ragingly jealous of a good friend's girlfriend. And then I had this moment of just feeling like deeply and terrifyingly alone. And then I went to my son's school and all of these kids call me their other mom. And I was like, right back up again, right? And that's it's a very human day that I had. A lot of ups and downs, lots of tears, but also lots of laughs. Like, it was a good day. It was a rough day, but it was a good day. And so giving myself the space to feel things also gave me the space to like embrace my child when he bursted into tears because his friend earned his RCA jacket today, right? Like, if you're able to hold space for yourself and your own emotions, it makes it easier to hold space for others and their emotions. So y'all, be kind to yourselves. If you can't be kind to you, you can't be kind to nobody else, not authentically.
That's deep. That's it. I think we often forget ourselves, and taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves. My theme lately has been giving myself grace. I don't think we give
I'm
ourselves.
glad somebody's listening to their friend.
You don't do it yourself.
I absolutely do give myself grace.
We won't get into that.
Significantly. I just told everybody about this grace-filled day that I had.
No, that wasn't grace. That was being vulnerable.
It's still grace. Letting yourself feel things is being gracious.
But making yours, we'll get into it. We won't debate it. How many-
BFF.
how much more, I just want to make sure, because I do want to get to audience questions, because we could go back and forth all evening.
And I'm sure y'all would be here for every minute.
I don't see our program person.
ER, how much time we got?
We got another 20 minutes.
Is that including audience? Okay, so go for 5 more minutes and then we'll open for audience questions. Hey, excuse me, you the moderator, let me be quiet.
Because we could have some very deep questions here.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
We're not kicking y'all out. So.
Get it, Angela.
No. But we definitely want to, and I want to make sure that this is a safe space.
It is.
You hear my mama back there. If some of y'all act funny with somebody, she gonna get you. So I want y'all to feel free to ask whatever it is you feel led to ask. Let the spirit lead you. But just no, seriously, this is a safe space. So ask those questions. No question is a dumb question. No question is a silly question. A question is a question, and it deserves to be asked and answered. So please ask. We have a hand right there.
For accessibility, I'm gonna bring the mic around to everybody just so everybody can hear.
Hi, my name is Deja, and I've read all of your books except for the Charis series so far, so I'm getting there. And I've noticed that through your books, like you're always approaching like a societal structure that usually limits someone. So I was wondering. Oh, and also I lived in Mississippi, was raised there, so I'm very used to like only being around a specific thing and like people not accepting change in that way. So I was wondering, how do you approach how you're going to create your characters around these societal structures that are a huge part of all of our identities?
Girl, we both escaped. Hallelujah.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that question. Look, I have never been, if something bothers me, you're gonna hear my mouth about it, period. Like, and I've always been like, my brother is literally here and can tell you. So my auntie came to one of my events in Chicago. Like my auntie been around longer than my brother. This is my younger brother. My auntie been around since before I was born, right? And she was just very like, I don't like things that hurt people. I don't like inequity. I don't like stupidity, because a lot of it is rooted in stupidity. And I also can't not write the things that I write. So for me, the approach is always going to be, how do I create a character that is so endearing anybody can attach themselves to that character, and show how this character's life is impacted by systemic issues.
Ooh. That's a good one. Can I add something? Well, I'm
Please.
gonna add a question onto that question. Okay, we're in the era of book bannings right now.
Oh, God.
Both of us have had our books banned in a lot of places. And it's frustrating, and it's all of these things, but there have been times where I've read the reasons they banned my book, and I'm like, oh, good. Because I'm glad that that made you upset. I'm glad that
Yeah,
you're upset
I
that
hear
this is a book about racism. I'm glad that you're upset, because now be glad that racism exists. So let's say this book was on a book banners list. What would be the badge of honor? Yeah, what would be the thing that would make it a badge of honor for you that this book made somebody upset? Like, what about it would you be like, yes, I'm glad that bothers you?
I mean, the main thing is something I can't say because it would be a spoiler,
Okay.
but there is a topic that I very deliberately put in this book. There's minimal cussing in the book. There's like pretty much like no discussions of race. Like, it's definitely not a race or racism book, but there's one specific thing that I put in there.
Yes.
I put it in there on purpose just to see what would happen. So there's a very particular plot thread that is linked to one of these characters' lives, and I'm even gonna tell you which one, that contributes to where they are, right? And we're gonna see. We're gonna see.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, we have a question.
Well, good evening, ladies. My
Hello.
name is Renee. I'm here with my daughter. We're both big fans of both of your work. I'm very grateful for this event tonight. My question is about friendship. So, obviously we get to see the two of you engage in the banter and the relationship. And we talk a lot about the pressures of different roles and hats that we wear as women or as people in society. You spoke a little bit about being a parent, being a partner, being a writer, etc. So I just was wondering if you would share a little bit about how friendship, how important it is or isn't in your life, and how it sustains you, encourages you. I know that you've got projects together with other writer friends, so just wanted to know if you would speak a little bit about that, especially for me, selfishly, for my daughter who's getting ready to go to college. Like, I know my friends have helped me and sustained me through my life. How has friendship played an important part in your life, career, etc.?
I mean, look, there are like various types of love, all of them important. And I honestly feel as though platonic and friendship love is probably the most important. Our platonic relationships are typically the spaces where we are just fully ourselves, frequently without expectation from the other person, right? I think when I think about like romantic relationships, and when I think about how, and I'll give, from my own experience, like, how many of you have caught feelings for a friend before? Everybody raise your hand and quit playing with me. This is an experience of life. When you catch feelings for that friend, your behavior toward that friend changes. What you're willing to share with that friend changes, because all of a sudden it goes from being a relationship centered on mutual well-being to one that's centered on, I want them to like me. Which is why friendship is so vital. And I will say, I do think that our friendships are the spaces where we have just ample opportunity to grow. We have ample opportunity to learn. And we also have this really powerful form of support. Now, the other thing is, sometimes friendships end. And they are just as rough as like romantic breakups. So make sure there's space for that as well, you know? Like, I hold my friends very dear and close to me, because, I mean, look, let's be honest. If I only gotta write 1/6 of a book, let me maintain these friendships. Wow. It's feeling the same way. Like, look,
Oh, let me make sure I stay good with you guys, okay? Because we have a good thing going here.
and also the beauty of doing those projects was the fact that we know each other's strengths because we truly are friends, right? So like, we knew who to go to when this kissing scene is falling a little flat. Where's Nikki? Where's Nikki? Right?
Yeah.
When it was like, it's not enough tension and there's no dead bodies. We know who to go to for that. Right. So like, knowing who your friends are and how they write and what their stories are, it has lent itself to us being able to collaborate in ways that are moving humanity forward. So think of your friendships as spaces where you get to make the world better. I'm just all over dropping all the bars. That's what happened when your girl is sleeping. Let me make sure I sleep deprive myself.
No. Self-care.
Thank y'all for calling me in. Just
Yes.
that's what-
Oh, no, tomorrow I'm gonna check on her and be like, so did you sleep?
I want to be out. You're gonna not
Yeah.
get no.
I'm gonna know it's gonna be like tomorrow night when I check.
No response.
Okay.
I'm done.
Please sleep.
When I tell you I'm
Please
done.
sleep.
I'm probably gonna go out after this and then collapse. Girl, this is the last event. I gotta turn up. What you mean?
You need to turn down your sheets and go to bed.
Turn up.
In celebration, we must celebrate.
No.
Celebration's important,
You
Angela.
can celebrate after you've rested.
No. See, but the celebration's gonna make me need to rest even more. So we're just gonna roll with it.
But you can't do
So
like
we got
2
two virtual questions that I'll bring into the room. They're both about writing, so I'm gonna read them both at the same time. Y'all kind of hit them together. So the first one is from Anita, and Anita says, my book is different than the regular books, and just like both of y'all's books, it hits on sensitive topics for some people. And I'm a person of color, and I keep getting full requests and then rejections from my query. And I can't tell if it's the writing or the subject, and I don't know when to give up. So that's one question. And then Maya at Momo Reads from Bookstagram says, your book Chaos Theory is something that I screamed to from the rooftops about to all my loved ones as an adult. It brought me back to my teenage years and brought tears to my eyes. And then they say, my question is, what encouragement would you give to a writer that wants to put their voice out there, but is afraid to, whether due to imposter syndrome, anxiety, etc.? So what to do for the person who is getting rejections and can't tell if it's the subject matter or skill, and what to do for the person who's maybe experiencing imposter syndrome.
Yo, I got mad rejections. I don't know how, like I was in like 40 or so.
That's all?
Say it louder.
That's all?
Right. So to the first person who asked the question, I mean, what I would first do is look back through who you're querying, right? Like make sure that the people you are querying are representing the thing that you're querying, or have some that seem to be interested even in it. And then the other thing is you don't give up. Like this book is published because I pulled it off the shelf, or I pulled it out of the files. And there are many paths. What the one piece of advice I will give is make sure you're working on the next thing.
Yes.
So while you are querying, and this is to anybody in the room who is trying to get a literary agent, who is working on a book, once you have that book, that first project ready to submit to agents, and you have submitted it to agents, start the next thing. I mean, take a breath, right? But like, get to working on what could be next. And then once you finish that, get to working on what could be after that. This industry, or this career path, is built on like continuously making new things. And in order to succeed in perpetuity, you got to continue to make new things.
Right.
So just be ready.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yes.
you know, and I think it's funny because both of us, we're now publishing the books that
Of
our
our
first
hearts,
books
yep.
that we wrote that didn't get published when we
Correct.
thought they would get published. So just because it's not working now doesn't mean it won't work later.
Correct.
And the thing about publishing too is it could be that the writing is fantastic. It's just, oh, it's not, they don't think they can sell it to this person. They're not doing this kind of book. It could be so many things beyond your control that have absolutely nothing to do with your writing,
Yeah.
your talent, your skill. Now, if you are concerned about, you know, the story itself, make sure you're getting critique partners. Maybe make sure you're getting some people who are reading it with a fresh lens. But also too, know that so much of it is beyond your control.
Facts.
It just is. And that's when you start working on the other thing. And don't worry, and honestly, don't worry about whether the next thing is going to be a trend that's in or whatever, because that's something you don't have control over either. The only thing you can control is, did I write something I'm proud of? And if you're proud of it, that's it. And so no matter how many no's you get, if you get that one yes,
That's all you need.
that's all you need.
Yeah.
My favorite Jewish lady mentor, Jodi Picoult, once told me very bluntly, publishing is designed to weed out those without fortitude. I was like, oh, let me make sure I got some fortitude. And then to Momo, thank you for this question, our love. Look, I'm gonna shoot you straight. If you don't believe in you, why in the world would I?
Exactly. Dang, that was kind of harsh.
It's harsh, but it's true.
But you know, it's true. And here's the thing: know that every writer that you've read had doubt at some point.
Absolutely.
And if they didn't have doubt, they probably suck.
We still have doubt. I like every single time I sit down to write a book, I'm like, oh God, can I do this?
The imposter syndrome does not go away.
It doesn't.
I say this as somebody that's sold a whole lot of books. It doesn't go away. It just doesn't. You have to learn to still create in spite of it. Here's my piece of advice that I've been trying to do is I've been trying to think like a white man with audacity.
Mediocre.
A mediocre white man with the audacity to think that I got, that the world is open to me and everything I want is mine. When you start thinking like that, like it helps so much.
Y'all better grab that inner Todd and get to it.
And you know somebody's gonna be mad I said that, but it's the truth.
Your inner Todd doesn't care.
My inner side doesn't care. Exactly.
So I just wanted to thank you both. I told you this right before we got started, but you two are my daughter's favorite writers in all of literature. She's 12, she's a brilliant young woman, and she's a writer herself. And I wish, in hindsight, that I had brought her here tonight to have her here to be able to tell you what you mean to her. But I really just wanted to thank you too for what you mean to her. And Nick, I appreciate specifically your candor that you talked about and what it took to bring chaos theory to the world. Because so often on the outside looking in, it's we don't see that part of the process.
Right.
And you even humanize the process for us in ways that I just thought would be very encouraging. The question I have, you all just answered, but I was just wanted to ask if you could offer some encouragement to my daughter, who's a writer who looks up to both of you.
Hey, Leilani.
Leilani.
Right. That's my piece of encouragement. The only person who can tell the stories that you want to tell is you. If you do not tell those stories, they will not go out into the world.
That's it. What Nick said.
Also, thank you for loving us.
Yes.
And your dad will totally have another opportunity to bring you to see us because Nick Blake is coming out soon. Timothy.
We'll make it happen.
Hi, my name is Zoya. I've been writing kind of sort of. I'm on a pause because I've had a lot of life changes. However, when I started, I was trying to create characters that were familiar to me, kind of like what you're doing in this book. These characters are familiar to you. I kind of had to scrap it because it was very emotional, very close to home, and I felt like I couldn't get it right. And I kind of restarted it with characters that were completely different from anyone in my own personal world. I was wondering, did you have that struggle? Is that why you never wrote from your own perspective? And if you did have that struggle, of writing about yourself and the people around you. How did you get over that?
My initial struggle with writing from my own perspective wasn't me. It didn't come from me. It came from never seeing people who looked like me in books, and therefore being led to believe that we didn't exist in those spaces. So it was less about the struggle for me writing my own self and my own struggles, and more about the idea that nobody would want to read it, right? So it took me holding on to Todd and being like, inner Todd, how would you handle this?
I'm gonna come up with an acronym for Todd.
Y'all make sure you embrace that inner Todd.
Or Chad.
Now I know a black Chad. I can't do that. I grew up with a Chad, dog. Like I can't. And he a black Chad. Marcus, you know Chad. We know Chad now. Okay. So yeah, I think the most important thing you can do, because frequently if you're writing something personal and it's hitting stuff, it's stuff that you can interrogate for yourself. And like, I use writing to heal as well. So sometimes writing through it will be the best thing that you can do for yourself, even though it's uncomfortable, right? The beauty of it is don't nobody have to read that if you don't want them to. At this point, what you're doing is writing for you. How do I take this story that is clearly stirring some things up in me and write through it to the other side? I had issues trying to write the opposite, right? Like I kept trying to write a story that wasn't me, it didn't really have any of me in it. And that's where I was struggling. So then when I was like, oh, wait a minute, girl. Toni Morrison, though, she was writing The Bluest Eye. You know what I'm saying? Pecola Breedlove is a person in a book. Okay, right? Seaweed is in a book. We in these books, so write it. But yeah, give yourself the space to be human and to write through your feelings. Your feelings matter.
And if it's about other people, and if anybody in here is writing about other people in their lives, characters based on them, inspired by them, and you're worried about what they're gonna think, I'm just gonna let you know now, they never know it's them.
Okay,
on
how close you write them though.
The only person who's ever recognized themselves in my book was you.
Well, it's because you told me I was in there.
The character's name is Nathan. But like,
I mean, she also like.
anyway, they rarely ever do. Now, I will say too, it's okay to cry through it. It's okay. I cry writing my stuff. It's okay to cry through it. And sometimes the best form of therapy is writing those things that are hard to write from our own personal experience. And what you will come to find is that if it does get into readers' hands, you're going to come across a lot of people who are going to be grateful that you went there. They're going to be so grateful you went there. So, I say give yourself some grace, but maybe reconsider
Jump back in.
characters
Jump back in.
like that. She's like, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Look, I like making people cry. So if I'm not crying while I'm writing, y'all not gonna
But
cry
you
while
know
you
what
reading.
too? And here's one thing I suggest. Don't put everything in one book. Maybe take a little bit here and put it in this character or this one here, but say something for the other books too. And that helps you pace yourself emotionally and mentally as you put these things in. Like over the course of my books so far, I've put little things in that I'm dealing with, that I've dealt with. And so I'm like, okay, so what am I going to put now? And that made it easier for me to deal with on page and writing it and having that emotional catharsis, So take your time, but also put those things in there because those are the characters usually the readers connect with the most.
Dr. Angela is in the building.
See, I would be a horrible doctor, horrible therapist.
We have a related follow-up question that I think would be a good one to close on because we're right at 8:30. So Ashley says, speaking of not sleeping, how do you take care of yourself and monitor your own mental health while you are actively writing about these hard things?
Yeah, I mean, meditation is my lifeblood, y'all. Like, I cannot go through a day without sitting down, and meditating. I do a lot of guided meditation. Sometimes I just let myself sink into myself. But taking the time to actually plumb the depths of your own mind and emotions is really, really important. There are absolutely times when I can't. So it's like you have to figure out ways to care for yourself when the demands on you are really high. This is my 3rd book tour in 4 months. Who idea was this? It was not mine. I'll put that out there. This was not my idea. However, it's important to me to know that this book is getting out into the world the way that it needs to. And so I go and I want to talk to people. I want to see you guys. I want y'all to see me. I want y'all to be like, oh, she cute. Oh, she got issues just like me, right? Like have all of that going on. And for me, this is a form of self-care. Getting to sit with you and talk with you and be like, your girl had a wild day is self-validation, which is a form of self-care. I'm absolutely going to go have a good time when I leave here, which is a form of self-care. And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to knock out. And that's going to be a real great form of self-care. A lot of it is baby steps and making sure, I always operate from the space. So my mantra, and I'm talking like mantra, like I repeat it to myself over and over and over again, multiple times a day, is there is only love. And so I do my best to operate from that space, first toward myself. And sometimes that looks like saying no. I be saying no a lot, y'all.
Listen.
Like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it looks like saying yes. Sometimes it looks like, oh, y'all, my nails need to be done. Y'all, when I tell y'all, I tried to get in with my nail artist before, and they look great, but they really grown out. They still fire. I know.
Oh, look at mine.
But I'm just saying, like, this is a form of self-care. And I do it because you can, there's like a click with the snap. That's literally why I have my nails. It's like, I'm ridiculous and amazing at the same time. But even things like that, self-affirmation, like these are the ways that I care for myself. Cause like I got kids, I got kids that's not my kids. I told you, I went to my son's school today and like, one of the teachers came up to me later and was like, yeah, sometimes I don't even like when you be in here because everybody comes up to me, can I go say hey to my other mom? Can I go say hey to my other mom? And I'm like, don't be hating because you don't get to be their other mom. But that feels good, you know? So you pursue pleasure, do things that make you feel good. Those are the best ways to care for yourself.
And saying no.
Say no.
No is a complete
Which feels
sentence.
real good sometimes.
And no is a complete sentence.
Yes, it is.
So one of the ways that we are gonna honor your no is that you pre-signed a bunch of books for
I
us,
did.
which means that we are not gonna do an after signing. So I just want everybody to hear that and honor that in the spirit of generosity that they came early to sign everything. We got a bunch of
It's only
pre-signed.
because I'm exhausted, y'all.
Right. So what we're not gonna do is come up here and bomb at the end. And as much as you might want to, please don't do that.
We probably are. We love you, DR.
So
You stand up because mama tells you that phrase all the time.
that's right. But we do have tons of signed books. All of Angie's books are signed as well. We do want you to go home with lots of books tonight. We have tons of resources here from Beam. They have put together these beautiful, beautiful kits. I mean, this is some fancy kits. So go get yourself a kit, get yourself a water bottle, learn more about the important work that they do. We're gonna say goodnight to our friends on this virtual event.
Bye, friends. Thank you for tuning in.
If y'all don't have your copy or you need to buy an extra copy, click that teal button right now to get you another signed copy. You can do that. Thank you so much for being with us. Good night and be safe.